in which our lovers begin to learn the consequences of their actions. Chapter 4. The personal matter that had occupied Levine during his conversation with his brother was the following. Once last year, coming to the mowing and getting angry with the steward, Levine had used his remedy for calming down. He had taken a scythe from a mujik and begun mowing. He had liked the work so much that he had taken to mowing several more times. He had mowed the whole meadow in front of his house, and since the spring of that year he had made a plan for himself to spend whole days mowing with the mujiks. Since his brother's arrival he had been pondering to mow or not. He was ashamed to leave his brother alone for whole days, and he feared that his brother would laugh at him for it. But having walked through the meadow, recalling his impressions of mowing, he was now almost decided that he would mow, and after the vexing conversation with his brother he again recalled this intention. I need physical movement, otherwise my character definitely deteriorates, he thought, and he decided to mow no matter how awkward it was in front of his brother and the peasants. In the evening, Constantine Levine went to the office, gave orders about the work, and went to the villages to summon mowers for tomorrow to mow the viburnum meadow, the biggest and the best. And please send my scythe to Titus to be sharpened and brought along tomorrow. Perhaps I'll do some mowing myself, he said, trying not to be embarrassed. The steward smiled and said, Yes, sir. That evening over tea, Levine told his brother as well. The weather seems to have settled, he said. Tomorrow I'll start mowing. I like that work very much, said Sergei Ivanovitch. I like it terribly. I've mowed with the mujiks occasionally, and tomorrow I intend to mow the whole day. Sergei Ivanovitch raised his head and looked at his brother with curiosity. How do you mean? On a par with the mujiks? The whole day? Yes, it's very satisfying, said Levine. It's wonderful as physical exercise, only you'll hardly be able to hold out, Sergei Ivanovitch said without any mockery. I've tried it. It's hard at first, but then you get into the rhythm. I don't think I'll lag behind. Really? But tell me, how do the mujiks look at it? They must be chuckling over their master's whimsies. No, I don't think so. But it's such cheerful and at the same time such hard work that one has no time to think. But how are you going to have dinner with them? It's a bit awkward to send Lafitte and roast turkey to you out there. No, I'll just come home when they take their break. The next morning, Constantine Levine got up earlier than usual, but tasks on the estate detained him, and when he came to the mowing, the mowers had already started the second swath. From the top of the hill there opened out before him, at its foot, the shady, already mowed part of the meadow, with graying rows and black heaps of caftans which the mowers had taken off where they started their first swath. As he rode nearer, the mujiks came into his view, following each other in a strung-out line and swinging their scythes variedly, some in caftans, some just in shirts. He counted 42 men. They moved slowly along the uneven lower edge of the meadow where the old dam was. Levine recognized some of his people. There was old Yermil in the very long white shirt, bent over and swinging his scythe. There was the young lad Vaska, Levine's former coachman, taking each swath at one swing. There was also Titus, Levine's tutor in mowing, a small, skinny mujik. He walked straight ahead without bending, as if playing with his scythe, cutting down his wide swath. Levine got off his horse, tethered it by the road, and met Titus, who took a second scythe from a bush and handed it over. "It's ready, master. Like a razor, mows by itself," said Titus, doffing his hat with a smile and handing him the scythe. Levine took the scythe and began to get the feel of it. Their swaths finished, the sweaty and cheerful mowers came out on the road, one after another, chuckling and greeting the master. They all gazed at him, but nobody said anything until a tall old man with a wrinkled, beardless face and a sheepskin coat came out on the road and addressed him. "Watch out, master. Once you start, there's no stopping," he said, and Levine heard repressed laughter among the mowers. "I'll try to keep up," he said, taking a stand behind Titus and waiting for the moment to start. "Watch out now," the old man repeated. Titus cleared his place, and Levine followed him. The grass near the road was low, and Levine, who had done no mowing for a long time, and was embarrassed by the looks directed at him, mowed poorly for the first few minutes, though he swung strongly. Voices were heard behind him. "It's not hafted right. The handle's too long. See how he has to bend?" one voice said. "Bear down on the heel," said another. "Never mind, he'll get himself set right," the old man went on. "See, there he goes. The swath's too wide. He'll get tired. He's the owner, never fear. He's doing his best. And look at the hired men. Our kind would get it in the neck for that." The grass became softer, and Levine, listening but not answering, and trying to mow the best he could, followed after Titus. They went some 100 steps. Titus kept on without stopping, without showing the slightest fatigue, but Levine was already beginning to fear that he would not hold out. He was so tired. He felt he was swinging with his last strength and decided to ask Titus to stop. But just then Titus himself stopped and, bending down, took some grass, wiped the blade, and began to wet it. Levine straightened up and, taking a deep breath, looked back. Behind him came a mujik, and evidently he was also tired, because he stopped at once before reaching Levine and began to wet. Titus wetted his and Levine's scythe, and they went on. The second time it was all the same. Titus moved on, swing after swing, without pausing and without tiring. Levine followed him, trying not to lag behind, and finding it harder and harder. There came a moment when he felt he had no strength left, but just then Titus stopped and wetted his scythe. So they finished the first swath, and this long swath seemed especially hard to Levine. But then when the swath was finished and Titus, shouldering a scythe, went back with slow steps over his own heel prints in the mowing, and Levine went back the same way over his own mowing, though sweat streamed down his face and dripped from his nose, and his back was all wet as if soaked with water. He felt very good. He rejoiced especially knowing now that he would hold out. His satisfaction was poisoned only by the fact that his swath did not look good. "I'll swing less with my arm, more with my whole body," he thought, comparing Titus' swath, straight as an arrow, with his own rambling and unevenly held swath. Titus had taken the first swath very quickly, as Levine had noticed, probably wanting to test his master, and the swath happened to be a long one. The following swaths were easier, but even so Levine had to strain all his strength not to lag behind the mujiks. He thought of nothing, desired nothing, except not to lag behind and to do the best job he could. He heard only the clang of scythes, and ahead of him saw Titus' erect figure moving on, the curved semicircle of the mowed space, grass and flower heads bending down slowly and wavily about the blade of his scythe, and ahead of him the end of the swath, where rest would come. Not understanding what it was or where it came from, in the midst of his work he suddenly felt a pleasant sensation of coolness on his hot, sweaty shoulders. He glanced at the sky while his blade was being wetted. A low, heavy cloud had come over it, and big drops of rain were falling. Some moujiks went for their kaftans and put them on. Others, just like Levine, merely shrugged their shoulders joyfully under the pleasant freshness. They finished another swath, and another. They went through long swaths, short swaths with bad grass, with good grass. Levine lost all awareness of time, and had no idea whether it was late or early. A change now began to take place in his work, which gave him enormous pleasure. In the midst of his work, moments came to him when he forgot what he was doing and began to feel light, and in those moments his swath came out as even and good as Titus's. But as soon as he remembered what he was doing and started trying to do better, he at once felt how hard the work was, and the swath came out badly. Having finished one more swath, he wanted to walk back again, but Titus stopped, went over to the old man, and quietly said something to him. They both looked at the sun. What are they talking about? Why doesn't he go back down the swath? Thought Levine, to whom it did not occur that the moujiks had been mowing without a break for no less than 4 hours, and it was time for them to have breakfast. Breakfast, master, the old man said. Already? Well, let's have breakfast then. Levine handed the scythe back to Titus, and, together with the moujiks, who were going to their kaftans to fetch bread, walked to his horse over the swaths of the long-mowed space, lightly sprinkled with rain. Only now did he realize that his guess about the weather had been wrong, and that the rain was wetting his hay. The hay will be spoiled, he said. Never mind, master. Mow when it rains, rake when it shines, said the old man. Levine untethered his horse and went home to have coffee. Sergei Ivanovitch had just risen. After having coffee, Levine went back to the mowing, before Sergei Ivanovitch had time to get dressed and come out to the dining room. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.